Early morning on December 4th, 2024, at 6:46 a.m., the 911 lines in New York City lit up with a panicked scream. "There's a man shot. He's lying on the sidewalk. There's blood everywhere. Oh my God, he's not moving." Just 2 minutes later, NYPD officers raced to West 54th Street, right outside the New York Hilton Midtown. On the cold concrete lay the body of a man in his 50s, wearing a dark suit, face down. Blood from wounds in his back and right calf was pooling across the pavement. 3 shell casings rested nearby. There were no screams from the crowd, no sirens yet. Only the deathly silence of a December morning in Manhattan. That man was Brian Thompson, CEO of UnitedHealthcare, one of the largest health insurance companies in America. He had just stepped out of the hotel, on his way to an investor conference only a few hundred yards away. No one among the morning pedestrians could have imagined that in less than 10 seconds, a silenced gunshot would change everything. Police quickly sealed off the scene. They saw 3 shell casings with words crudely etched into them: deny, delay, depose, a plastic water bottle, a candy wrapper, and the fresh tracks of an electric bicycle speeding towards Central Park. No witness had clearly seen the shooter's face. Only security cameras captured a shadowy figure in dark clothing, wearing a backpack, standing ready about 20 feet away. This was not a robbery. It was not a random street crime. This was a calculated assassination carried out in broad daylight in the heart of Manhattan. But the biggest question still hung heavy in the freezing air. Who wanted Brian Thompson dead? And why choose the exact moment he was stepping into an ordinary workday? The enemy doesn't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes, he stands right in the daylight, and no one sees him coming. Brian Thompson was the picture of American success. At 50 years old in 2024, he served as CEO of UnitedHealthcare, the largest health insurance division of UnitedHealth Group, one of the most valuable companies on Wall Street. He lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood, was a devoted husband, and the father of 2 children. Those who knew him described him as professional, responsible, and fully committed to his role in the healthcare industry. On the morning of December 4th, 2024, Brian Thompson left his hotel to attend an important investor conference in Manhattan. It was a routine high-level event where executives gathered to present financial results and future strategies. Dressed in a sharp, dark suit, he stepped out of the New York Hilton Midtown with the familiar stride of a man heading into another, ordinary workday. There were no warning signs, no prior threats. His life appeared to be at its peak, a perfect image of achievement. Not far away, in another city, Luigi Mangione was also living what seemed like a perfectly normal life on the surface. Born in 1998 in Maryland to a well-off family, Mangione had been a top student at a prestigious boarding school. He later earned both his bachelor's and master's degrees in computer science from the University of Pennsylvania, an Ivy League institution. He had worked in the tech industry and moved between places like Hawaii and Pennsylvania. People who knew him described him as intelligent, polite, and unassuming. He enjoyed sports, travel, and occasionally shared his thoughts about life on social media. Yet beneath that polished exterior, there were small cracks that few people noticed. Mangione had suffered from a serious back condition called spondylolisthesis, which led to spinal fusion surgery in 2023. He had expressed deep frustration with the American healthcare system, particularly how insurance companies handled claims. In his personal writings, he sometimes revealed a profound resentment toward the health insurance industry, the very industry that Brian Thompson helped lead. Both men, the victim and the man later accused of being the killer, were living what appeared to be the most ordinary days of their lives. Brian Thompson was preparing for a promising conference day. Luigi Mangione was moving from place to place, looking every bit like a successful young professional. No one could have guessed that in just a few hours, their 2 paths would collide fatally in the middle of Manhattan. That ordinary peace made what happened next all the more horrifying. When NYPD officers arrived on West 54th Street, the scene that greeted them was one of cold, silent horror on a freezing December morning. Brian Thompson's body lay face down on the concrete sidewalk, just steps from the entrance of the New York Hilton Midtown. Blood from 2 gunshot wounds, one in his back and one in his right calf, had pooled and spread across the gray pavement. He was still wearing his dark suit, his tie perfectly in place, as if he had only just stepped out of the hotel to begin his workday. His hand still clutched his phone. There were no signs of a struggle, only a heavy, oppressive silence broken by the approaching wail of ambulances. 3 brass shell casings lay scattered near the body. The most chilling detail the investigators noticed immediately was that each casing had words crudely carved into it by hand: deny, delay, depose. Those words were not random. They carried a cold, deliberate message. A few feet away, officers found a still-sealed plastic water bottle, a candy wrapper, and fresh tire tracks from an electric bicycle speeding towards Central Park. The murder weapon was gone. Only the faint smell of gunpowder lingered in the icy air, proof that the gun had been fitted with a silencer. One officer who was on scene later recalled, "There was something deeply wrong about this. It wasn't a robbery. The shooter didn't take the wallet, didn't take the watch, didn't take anything. He just shot and disappeared. Like he came here for one purpose only, to end that man's life." Hotel staff and mourning pedestrians began gathering at the edge of the police tape. Everyone was in shock. One hotel employee, visibly shaking, described it. "I only heard 3 soft pft, pft, pft sounds, like popping bubbles. When I turned around, he was already lying on the ground." The initial examination showed the victim had been shot from behind at close range. The fatal wound to the back had passed through his chest. He never had a chance to react. The entire attack lasted less than 10 seconds. The crime scene was eerily clean. No clear fingerprints, no witnesses who saw the shooter's face clearly. Only small fragments, 3 etched shell casings, a water bottle, and blurry security camera footage showing a dark figure in a hat and backpack leaving the scene on an electric bike heading into the park. Investigators stood over the body, staring at the shell casings with their carved messages, and muttered to one another, "This wasn't random. Someone planned this very carefully, and they wanted us to know exactly why." The air that morning felt so heavy it seemed as if all of Manhattan had stopped breathing. In the days following the assassination, New York City was gripped by tension. NYPD detectives and the FBI launched a massive investigation. Hundreds of hours of security camera footage from Midtown Manhattan were meticulously reviewed. The blurry images showed a man in a dark coat and hat, wearing a backpack, fleeing the scene on an electric bicycle. He had purchased a bottle of water and a granola bar at a nearby Starbucks, roughly 30 minutes before the shooting. The autopsy confirmed that Brian Thompson was shot 3 times from behind with 9mm ammunition. 2 of the shots were fatal. The silencer had muffled the gunshots, so many witnesses only heard faint pft sounds. The 3 shell casings engraved with deny, delay, and depose became the most significant clue, proving the attack was not random but carried a clear symbolic message against the health insurance industry. At first, investigators explored several directions. There had been previous threats against UnitedHealthcare executives, and some disgruntled employees were briefly considered persons of interest. However, none of those leads matched the crime scene. Early theories involving personal disputes or business conflicts were quickly ruled out due to the complete absence of any struggle or robbery. The breakthrough came from DNA evidence. On the water bottle and granola bar left near the scene, forensic scientists recovered male DNA. It didn't produce an immediate match in the database, but it would become a crucial piece later. 5 days after the murder, on December 9th, 2024, a 911 call from a McDonald's employee in Altoona, Pennsylvania, more than 350 miles from New York, changed everything. A customer recognized a man eating breakfast who matched the widely circulated suspect sketch. He was using the fake name Mark Rosario and carrying false identification. When Altoona police approached him, the man was Luigi Mangione. He was initially arrested for using forged documents. During a preliminary search of his backpack at the restaurant, officers found a loaded box of ammunition. Later, at the police station, a more thorough search revealed a 9mm ghost gun, a 3D printed suppressor, fake passports, credit cards, and a small red notebook. The red notebook contained handwritten notes criticizing the health insurance industry, including the phrase, "Some people simply had it coming." There was also a to-do list: change appearance, avoid surveillance cameras, travel at night. Ballistics later confirmed that the gun in the backpack matched the shell casings recovered from the crime scene. This discovery ended a nationwide manhunt in just 5 days. The shadowy figure from the Midtown cameras now had a name, a face, and overwhelming physical evidence against him. But the story was far from over. Luigi Mangione was extradited to New York to face murder charges. He pleaded not guilty. The real legal battle was only just beginning. Based on the physical evidence and court records, the exact moment of the crime was reconstructed in chilling detail. On the morning of December 4th, 2024, Luigi Mangione had been waiting on West 54th Street, positioned about 20 feet from the entrance of the New York Hilton Midtown. He was dressed in dark clothing, wearing a hat and a backpack, his face partially concealed by a mask. As Brian Thompson stepped out of the hotel on his way to the investor conference, Mangione approached from behind. In less than 10 seconds, he drew a 9mm ghost gun fitted with a 3D printed suppressor and fired 3 shots. 2 bullets struck Thompson in the back and right calf. Brian Thompson collapsed onto the sidewalk without a chance to cry out. The shooter calmly turned away, rode off on an electric bicycle toward Central Park, and disappeared into the morning crowd. The 3 shell casings engraved with "Deny," "Delay," and "Depose" fell to the pavement, a deliberate message against the practices of the health insurance industry. The gun and suppressor later recovered from Mangione's backpack were ballistically matched to the casings at the scene. In the New York State courtroom, prosecutors presented the evidence with cold precision. They showed security camera footage, explained how the DNA on the water bottle and granola bar matched Luigi Mangione, and displayed the red notebook found in his backpack. Inside were handwritten notes attacking the health insurance system, the phrase, "Some people simply had it coming," and a detailed to-do list that included changing his appearance, avoiding cameras, and traveling at night. The ghost gun, ammunition, fake identification in the name of Mark Rosario, and other items were laid out as irrefutable proof. Luigi Mangione sat at the defense table with an almost emotionless expression. He pleaded not guilty to every charge. His defense team argued that some evidence from the backpack may have been obtained in violation of constitutional rights and attempted to have portions of it suppressed. The court ultimately rejected most of those motions, allowing the majority of the physical evidence to be used at trial. A major twist occurred in the federal case. In January 2026, federal judge Margaret Garnett dismissed the 2 most serious charges, including murder through the use of a firearm. This removed the possibility of the death penalty. Only 2 federal stalking charges remained, carrying a maximum sentence of life in prison. The New York State case, charging second-degree murder and weapons offenses, continued. As of April 2026, both trials had been delayed multiple times. The state trial was rescheduled to begin in September 2026, while the federal trial was pushed back to January 2027. With jury selection set for January 5th and opening arguments around January 25th. Tension filled the courtroom as prosecutors emphasized the premeditated nature of the assassination. They argued that Mangione had stalked his victim, planned every detail, and left a clear symbolic message on the shell casings. The defense tried to portray him as an intelligent man frustrated by chronic pain and a broken healthcare system. Yet the physical evidence, DNA, the gun, and the notebook, remained the heaviest blows. The most emotional moments came when Brian Thompson's family appeared in court, forced to watch reenactments of the crime scene. The trial was not only a legal battle, but a raw confrontation between profound loss and calculated detachment. Now that the evidence has been laid bare, the true motive behind Luigi Mangione's actions is revealed through the handwritten notes in the red notebook found inside his backpack. Mangione was not a direct victim of UnitedHealthcare. Records show he had no insurance coverage with the company between 2014 and 2024. However, he harbored a deep and consuming resentment toward the entire American health insurance industry. In his notebook, he wrote about the deadly greed-fueled health insurance cartel. He referred to insurance companies as parasites and stated that some people simply had it coming. Another entry showed he had considered multiple targets, even thinking about attacking someone with the initials KMD, but ultimately concluded, "The target is insurance. it checks every box. He believed that assassinating a health insurance CEO would send a powerful message, draw public attention, and improve the lives of everyone. This resentment stemmed in part from his own experiences. Mangione had suffered excruciating back pain due to spondylolisthesis, a condition where a vertebra slips out of place. In 2023, he underwent spinal fusion surgery at L5/S1. After the operation, he posted on Reddit expressing relief that the pain had decreased rapidly. Yet in the months that followed, he became increasingly isolated, cutting off contact with friends and family. Mangione also expressed admiration for Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, whom he described as a political revolutionary. He had read Kaczynski's writings and agreed with the idea that violence could be justified to fight social injustice and corporate greed. Forensic psychologists and criminal profilers note a dangerous combination: extreme ideological beliefs paired with a sense of self-heroization. Mangione appeared to view himself as one of the first people willing to confront the problem with brutal honesty, ready to act instead of merely complaining. Psychologically, he displayed the traits of a highly organized, cold, and remorseless offender. The use of a 3D printed ghost gun and suppressor, forged documents, and the detailed to-do list in his notebook all pointed to meticulous planning rather than an impulsive act. He chose the time, the location, and deliberately left symbolic messages on the shell casings to turn the murder into a public manifesto against the system. Behind the facade of a bright young man from a privileged background with an Ivy League education lay a mind driven by personal pain, societal grievance, and the conviction that violence could deliver justice. His actions were not aimed solely at one individual, but at an entire symbol of an industry he believed was parasitic on the suffering of millions. It was brutality carefully disguised as a mission. As of April 2026, the final verdict has not yet been delivered. Luigi Mangione has not been convicted on any charges. He continues to plead not guilty to every count against him. The New York State trial, where Mangione faces second-degree murder, along with weapons and forgery charges, has been postponed until September 2026. The federal case, which now consists of only 2 stalking charges across state lines, has been delayed multiple times. Jury selection is currently scheduled to begin on January 5, 2027, with opening arguments expected around January 25, 2027. The possibility of the death penalty was removed in January 2026 when federal judge Margaret Garnett dismissed the most serious charges. If convicted on the remaining counts, Mangione could still face life in prison. Brian Thompson's family continues to live with a profound and irreplaceable loss. His wife and children have been forced to endure the public retelling of how their husband and father was gunned down on a Manhattan sidewalk simply for going to work. They have not yet had the chance to speak fully in court, but his absence has left a permanent void in their lives. The case has sent ripples far beyond the courtroom. It has exposed the deep public anger toward the American health insurance industry, where millions feel trapped by the practices of deny, delay, depose. After the shooting, a portion of public opinion turned Luigi Mangione into a symbol of resistance. Supportive slogans appeared online and even at some protests. At the same time, many others strongly condemned the violence, insisting that murder is never an acceptable form of protest. The assassination also prompted heightened security measures for insurance executives and corporate leaders across the country. It forced society to confront a difficult question: can accumulated frustration with the healthcare system lead to acts of violence? And what responsibility do large corporations bear for the pain they cause? Sometimes the heaviest sentence is not the one written on legal documents. It is the lifelong imprisonment within one's own conscience. For those left behind to wonder why a bright young man from a good family chose the path of violence to make his voice heard, and whether the message carved into those shell casings truly changed anything, or only added more blood and sorrow to an already broken system. The Luigi Mangione case is not yet closed, but it has already forever altered how we view justice, societal resentment, and the thin line between words and deadly action.
The story doesn't end when the gavel falls. What begins at one man's calculated acts on a freezing December's morning in Manhattan had become something for all others, A mirror is held up to a broken healthcare system, raw public angers, and a society still arguing over whether that stage truly begins and ends. Two very different lives collided in one day. One was taken, one was surrendered, and the questions left behind refused to disappear with any courtroom verdict. If this investigation moved you, challenged you, or left you thinking along after the screen went dark, do me a favor right now. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. We have more unflinching deep stories to come. Thank you for watching all the way through. Drop some honest thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Until next time, stay curious.